you are joining live, please let me know. I want to make sure that I can see everybody asking their questions. This is a kind of a first time for me using this option. I think it's going to be really cool because I can display the questions that you guys ask. I can, it's going to be more like a presentation rather than you just kind of staring at me. And I think I can toggle back and forth. I'll try that at the end so I don't screw it up. I'll go ahead and get a couple questions answered. If you guys can't hear me, please comment and let me know. I am going to just give me a second here. I'm going to log in and just get a live view for myself to kind of see what's going on here. And just get a live. Okay, cool. So it looks like we are good and we're live. Yes, this is so exciting. So as you can see, welcome to the Q&A today. Today's the day. This is the second one that we've actually started doing on a regular basis. Thank you so much, guys, for just asking questions, submitting questions. The way you're going to get the most out of this program, the Transformation Blueprint, is by customizing it for yourself. It's a really great base. Obviously, we offer tons of education, but it's not either going to be applicable to everybody, or you're going to have some questions about how to apply it to you in the right way, and that's what these Q&As are for. As you're going through the different modules, as you're uncovering some things about yourself, we want to talk about those things. We want to help you, and if at any point in time you want your question to be answered a little bit more anonymously, all you have to do is just send me a private message, or one of the coaches a private message, so that we can address your question. You can get it answered, but you don't have to worry about sharing any personal information. I know that a huge part of this journey, what we've seen, is that it goes a lot deeper than just what you're eating and how you're moving. There's reasons behind why we do what we do, and that is really our true passion and what the transformation, how it really comes about. So we're going to move right into the questions. I want to honor your time. So Becky asked, she basically gave a scenario. I'm going to assume, Becky, that you are Sally. But she gave a scenario that I think is not answered in a straightforward way. So I'm going to just read this out loud. Say Sally had a great day with lots of activities. She ate correctly and exercised. The next day, she's tired and hungry. She starts off right, but soon after carbs are calling to her. How should Sally have prepared for that next day? What foods should she eat the next day to fill that hunger? This is a fantastic question because this is the reality for a lot of people. It might not just be one day over the other, but here's a couple things Sally should do. One, Sally should write down this feedback. This is called biofeedback. We talk about this in, I can't remember the module, but we talk about this in the Transformation Blueprint. I can reference the module in the comments if you guys would like. And I think it's maybe halfway through, 5 or 6. And basically it's how your body is communicating with you. This is communicating that I'm hungry and my cravings are coming back. And what we know about cravings, we actually had a fantastic podcast about this. I will share the podcast link for you guys in the comments here because it talks about cravings versus hunger. And it gives you some insight to maybe why you're feeling a certain way. Increased activity, especially with lots of activity that may be a little bit out of the normal, your metabolism is going to be revving, and when that happens, hunger is going to ensue. So the very first thing is that you should have your meals planned out. What I like to do, especially if the days are busy, is the night before, just in the notes section on my phone, I already know what I have in the refrigerator or what's defrosted or what I can easily throw together in the next morning or that particular day for the following day, is make those meals. Decide what time I'm going to wake up and what I'm going to have for breakfast, maybe what my plans are, some rough estimates of what my plans are that day, if I have errands to run or particular work to accomplish, what time I plan to have my meals, so that I can take a peek at the clock and say, oh, wow, you know, I ate breakfast at 9 o'clock. Maybe that's why I'm getting hungry around that 12 to 1 o'clock hour. Or if you're up early and you'd had food early, maybe that's why you're getting hungry before lunch. You know, those of us that might wake up really early and have your first meal around 6 or 7, you're going to get a little bit hungrier a little bit sooner. And that's when the meal plan, not the whole template, but the actual, the meal plan template can come into play, because that's when those protein shakes are really great to have. Or if you choose to have a protein shake in the morning, having a meal would work really well right there, right before lunch. This allows your meals to be a little bit smaller, but it also prevents when those cravings do come. Now, a couple of reasons for carb cravings. Again, I'm going to reference to the podcast because, let's see, are you really hungry? I'm looking at the podcast, Cravings versus Emotional Eating. It's actually episode 9. So I'm just going to link the podcast here for you guys in the comments. Episode number 9, Hunger versus Cravings. I want you guys to listen to this if this question hits home for you, because what happens is, I'm sorry, I'm writing Hunger versus Emotional Eating. I think that's what the title was. Cravings versus emotional eating. Emotional eating. All right, thanks for bearing with me. What happens is that carb craving is misunderstood. Does your body actually need carbs? Maybe. You know, maybe you didn't have enough carbohydrates. It's really important to hone in on those portion sizes. They can get away from us sometimes, and I've seen several of you posting on Facebook or just in conversation talking about, you know, lower carb, things like that. And I want to just err on the side of caution by saying too low of carb will reduce your body's ability to have the energy to do what you want to do. And so it's actually going to blunt your fat loss. There is a management of having enough. And what we've done a lot of times is taking some of you guys that can ask specific questions and maybe adding carbohydrates into some of your meals. If you guys have coaching calls, we do this a lot on the one-on-one time with coaching calls, to be able to customize that meal plan so that it works better for you and your body continues to respond, because you can't just continue to eat less and less and less. So how should have Sally prepared for the next day? Well, she should have her meals already decided on and ready so that when those carb cravings kind of come, well, you just dismiss them. You eat what's in front of you and you be observant. Let's say, okay, you're really craving carbs. It's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You're feeling really tired. Eat the meal that you have planned or drink the shake that you have planned. Wait 30 minutes and evaluate. How do you feel? Are you still hungry? Is that craving? What is that that's causing the craving? Is it a particular food? Is it something that's in your home that you're just staring at the cinnamon rolls that were made by your family, your husband, or your kids or something? Are they just sitting right there calling your name? Those types of things can actually be more emotional triggers than physical hunger, and that's really important. And managing self-control, but also managing what is it? Test those waters. I think that's important that we don't live in such a rigid, bound up bubble that we don't test those waters a little bit and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to have a bite of that cinnamon roll, or I'm going to have that square of chocolate. And then I'm going to wait another 15, 30 minutes, and I'm going to think about it. How do I feel? What was that like? Did I enjoy it? Did I savor that? What happens whenever we begin to emotionally eat is that you basically just start shoving food in your mouth. I'm sure you've done it. Popcorn, candy, whatever. You're never just like shoving chicken in your mouth. You're never emotionally eating with quote unquote healthy food, but foods that don't typically contain some sugar in them, because sugar acts on your brain. And so there is a physiological response to that. It's a real thing. It's not in your head. The important thing is to evaluate how you're feeling and then decide, is it a self-control thing? Am I trying to fill a different void? What kinds of things, might impact that. In terms of what foods Sally should eat the next day to fill that hunger, the baseline of any type of diet is perfect. Whole foods. Whole foods that are listed on our grocery list, or you can even go kind of a little bit what some people might consider more processed, or what some bodies might not be able to digest as well, but having things like tortillas or a portion of tortilla chips even, all things like that might satisfy that crunchy, salty, or kind of whatever it is that you might be feeling like you're missing. Just portion it out and gather data about yourself this whole time. Gather data. That's really going to be the big thing. And you're going to forget how you feel from day to day, which is why we recommend to grab a journal at the beginning of the program and keep notes. These modules are accessible all the time. You have your lifetime subscription to the Transformation Blueprint. So go back and reevaluate as you feel like you might need to touch on some of those things. For those of you that are a bit later in the program, you might be experimenting more with the macro counting and the portioning and playing in MyFitnessPal a little bit. If you guys have specific questions about that, let me know, because we can just educate you a little bit better on what you might be feeling and why in terms of when to eat what. Macro counting is not for everyone. For some people, it can feel very obsessive and it can feel very rigid, and we don't want that. But it's a fantastic tool that's in our toolbox that we can use. And so that is really what we want to stress. Okay? So we are going to move on to question 2, which is also pretty loaded because it's got a couple A, B's, and C's. So Jackie asks, the exercise videos are a huge help, but I'm finding that there are many exercises on the guide that aren't in the video library. For example, I'm new to the weightlifting world, and I have questions about the difference between narrow vertical pull down, wide vertical pull down, narrow horizontal row, and wide bent over horizontal row. And how about the leg extension versus the leg curl variation? Keep in mind, I do everything at home. I need heavier weights. 7s are the biggest that I have, and I have a band with handles, but not circular. I just need to make a solid workout plan that I can print out for myself to stick with. My current plan is to run 2 days a week and weights 3 days a week. This is a fantastic question. It's actually something that we're working on. Now, at this point, I'm going to take my screen sharing off so you can see me access, but I wanted to be able to demonstrate the question that Jackie was asking about the different exercises. This is really, really common, and it's kind of something I want your help with in terms of trying to figure out how to best teach the level, because the program itself can be for the most advanced athlete, from competitor to beginner, or someone that's working out in their home like you, Jackie. So that's why there's variations in a lot of the different exercises. And so basic exercise education, that's kind of where I'm going to start with this conversation, is because the differences between, a narrow vertical pull down or a wide vertical pull down is something as simple as where your hands are gripped. Now, some of those things you are going to have to get extra creative while you're at home, because you might not have the same thing, like the facilities that the gym has. Obviously, being able to have different bars or different things like that, it's obviously something you can slowly build in your home gym or in your guest room, wherever, your living room, wherever you're performing your exercise. So some of the things, I will say that the most difficult, the most challenging, the biggest challenge you're going to have to overcome is going to be variation and load. Like you mentioned, right now the heaviest weights that you have are 7s. And so that is just, it's something that you're going to have to deal with. So you might have to do things a little bit faster. You might have to do higher reps of certain things for it to be challenging enough for you or to continue to see progress. But check out Facebook Marketplace, because I don't know exactly where you live, but there's stuff online all the time, that and Craigslist, of used dumbbells, used bands, used all that type of stuff. And honestly, I can actually post a link to like a little document of some at-home things. Actually, I think that's listed. I will double check. I think that's listed in the back of the exercise program, the training of the tools and things that if you wanted to buy them new, or just keep an eye whenever they show up online for the bands. The ones that you have with the handles is totally fine. They're just going to be used a little bit differently. In terms of exercise selection, like which exercises to do, it's all about the range of motion. So if you, each exercise is going to have a descriptor: narrow, vertical, pull down. If you YouTube vertical pull down, or you just search our YouTube channel with pull down, I don't think the mobile allows for searching, but our exercise document, the Excel document, or it's actually a Google Doc document, has them organized by body part. And so since your training is organized by body part, or at least you have an idea of what you're working, you could go to the tab and look for the pull down exercises to watch those demonstrations. Whenever an exercise is a variation, we couldn't offer a variation for every single one because there's so many variations. It's more about the range of motion. So we're programming the range of motion. You get to decide how you want to achieve that. So for example, I'm gonna scoot my chair back a little bit for you. I'm just gonna kneel down so you can see. Okay, so for a narrow vertical pull down, you may be sitting, you may have a band attached to something on the ceiling or on the door frame. Maybe if someone has like a TRX where it's kind of hanging down. Vertical means in this direction, narrow means shoulder width or a little bit closer depending on what handle you might have, versus wide is here. It is wrist on top of your elbow. That's as wide as you want to go. You never want to go way out here. That's a wide grip. So if you're using a band, you might start at the top, pull straight down this way. You're squeezing your back here, like right where your bra strap is. So if you have, let's say, your band that has the handles on it, if you have something that you can loop it over, something in your, if you want to close it in a door, like in the side of a door, I don't know how tight your door, it's going to be different. That's where you have to get really creative with a vertical type pull down. Now you can also make it, I'm going to turn to the side. Vertical pull down can be right above your head, this way, or it can turn into more of what is technically called a high row, where you're pulling from more in front of you, this way. You still get the opportunity to work your upper back muscles, but you're going to be a little bit limited, and that's just something that you have to deal with because you work out at home. Same thing, I'm just going to scroll down a little bit. For narrow horizontal row or wide bent over horizontal row, it's narrow and wide is just your hand grip. Hand grip will always be about shoulder width apart or a little bit more narrow. So you might have seen a narrow grip row like from a cable. So you can easily put your band, that's an easy one to kind of close in the door. The ones from the ceiling are a little bit harder, but if you close it to a door or if you hook it behind like a bedpost here, you could wrap a band here, and then I could literally, see if I'm in frame, I could literally pull in this direction. This is a horizontal row, this is a narrow row. If it's ever written as a vertical row, actually I'm gonna angle my camera down just a little bit for you so you can see me a little bit better. If it's ever a wide horizontal row, a wide horizontal row, then you would start forward and you would pull your elbows wide. Again, keeping your wrist right in front of your elbow. And you'll see how that's kind of focusing on the more upper back area versus when your elbows are down here, it's gonna focus more on like your lower, it's called your lower lats, but where your bra strap is. So that's the difference between doing a vertical and a horizontal and doing a narrow versus a wide. And the direction to either be bent over or seated, that's all just a variation. If it's bent over, see if I'm gonna be in frame. If it's bent over, you're gonna be in this direction. You can even stand on the band, depending on how big your band is or your space, and pull up in this direction. Okay, I'll bend down just a little bit for the sake of the camera. But you would normally not bend your knees that far. You would have a slight bend in your knees, core tight, back straight. If that is a wide bent over row, then you would do the same thing, elbows go wide. You can do this with your dumbbells, so you're just holding dumbbells. You can do this with a barbell, and you can have any grip. with a barbell. You can have overhand, underhand. Those are the small little details because our muscles there's so many different fibers that go all within the muscles. That's where the different variations can kind of come from. It's the best advice is to pick a variation and stick to it for at least a month, but we really like to see 8 weeks so that you can see how you're progressing. Now, if you're limited by, let's say, the amount of weight that you have available to you, you only have 7 pounds, you only have 1 band, then you might just have to challenge yourself with lower rest times. With a band, you can step on more of it to create more tension, even without using a band that actually has more tension. So you can kind of help that way by, getting out like an old-fashioned measuring tape and just measuring on the band where you pull. If you pull from a lower period, a lower section, you're going to have more tension. So you can do simple things like that, to make it work for you. But that would be what I would advise and how I would recommend you kind of challenging yourself with your at-home guides. Now, things with the leg extension and leg curl variations, the curl is going to be a little bit easier than the extension, but it's only because of the area. You can do curls a couple different ways, something like a seat like this. Again, you can hook that band. You can even put one side underneath each ankle, curl this way. Okay, you're going to start to feel that in your hamstrings. You can vice versa, turn it around. If you were in a chair like this, hook your ankles and pull in this direction. Extend, that would be a leg extension. You could stand up and do those. I'd have to really see your space and all of that. You can even Google at-home leg extensions and see what other people have done while they're at home. That can be really, really helpful. But I don't believe those things are necessarily going to hold you back. Keeping in mind that the exercise program is to give you ideas. It's to create some sort of structure. So if you have to replace just 1 or 2 of those exercises with something that suits your needs better because of what you have available, it's totally fine. The consistency, the progression, those are the things that are really going to help move you forward. Okay? So with all of that being said, your plan with running 2 days a week and having your weights 3 days a week is totally fine. If you have any questions along that, if you see that you're not making the progress that you want, please let us know, especially because if you're ever feeling confused about should I change my diet or should I change my exercise, those are the type of things that we can go over in these Q&As, as long as you guys give me enough detail about what you have been doing and what you're able to do, and then I can kind of facilitate maybe what I think would be best for you. Okay? So let me know. Like I said, I'm going to splice these and put them together so that they're in the Transformation Blueprint course portal that's on the website. Whenever you log in, you can rewatch these. You can see them. They'll also be in the group, but sometimes they tend to kind of disappear down to the bottom. You can always access them by going to the tab and hitting video, and then they'll be there. Okay, I hope you guys got a lot out of this. I can't wait to answer your questions in a couple weeks. Have a good one.